What if Taylor Swift wrote music about environmental protection? She's one of the most influential artists of our time, with millions of listeners around the world. Her fans don't just listen to her music, they analyze, interpret, and search for meaning in every lyric she writes. Her messages reach an enormous audience. So I started thinking, anyone trying to communicate something important could probably learn from the way she connects with people and makes them care about what she has to say. At the moment, I'm getting a master's degree in biodiversity conservation, and one of the hardest, but in my opinion, also one of the most important parts in this field is reaching people, helping them care without making them feel guilty or overwhelmed. So I decided to try something different. I took Taylor Swift's new song, The Fate of Ophelia, and reimagined it as a story about our relationship with nature, about loss, renewal, and our longing to live in balance with the world around us. This video is about how that idea evolved, how I ended up rewriting the lyrics, composing a new melody, and turning it into a music video about the dream of living in harmony with nature. When I first heard Taylor Swift's song, The Fate of Ophelia, I started wondering, what if this song were about biodiversity conservation? What if millions of people listened to it and became aware of issues like the loss of biodiversity and natural ecosystems? Of course, I knew that was probably unrealistic. Even though Taylor often draws inspiration from nature, it's very unlikely she'd release a song directly about conservation. And if she did, it would probably spark controversy. People might call it hypocritical because of her lifestyle, especially her private jet use. I came across a New York Times article by Fate of Ophelia. He's the global lead freshwater scientist at the World Wildlife Fund. It's titled, Taylor Swift is Singing Us Back to Nature. In this article, he talks about how Taylor's use of nature-based language in her albums Folklore and Evermore has drawn the attention of conservation scientists. They noticed how her lyrics with some nature themes evoke empathy for the natural world. Opperman even compared her songs to today's mainstream pop hits, and he found that Taylor uses nature-related words 7 times more often than other artists. That's striking, especially considering studies showing a 63% decline in nature-related language in song lyrics since the 1950s. As Opperman puts it, pop culture shapes how we see the world, and artists like Taylor can help rebuild our emotional connection with nature, even if indirectly. It got me thinking, what if I could use the same methods Taylor uses to make her fans connect with a story? Instead of presenting conservation through graphs, charts, and scientific articles, I wanted people to feel it, to experience it through a story and imagery. This could be a way to reach people that traditional methods in conservation rarely achieve. But before I start writing the song, I need to understand how Taylor connects so deeply with her audience. In order to understand how Taylor Swift connects with her audience, I wanted to look closely at her new song, The Fate of Ophelia. It's a great example of how she weaves storytelling, symbolism, and emotion into her music. In William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Ophelia is the prospective wife of Hamlet, whose tragic story ends in madness and drowning. Taylor's song takes this familiar literary reference and reimagines it through her own lens. She sings, "The eldest daughter of a nobleman, Ophelia lived in fantasy, but love was a cold bed full of scorpions. The venom stole her sanity." Here, Taylor aligns herself with Ophelia, a woman broken by love. But as the song unfolds, she changes the narrative. While Shakespeare's Ophelia drowns, Taylor is saved. Later in the song, she sings, "Late one night, you dug me out of my grave and saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia." It's a powerful image. She takes one of literature's most iconic tragedies and turns it into a story of redemption and emotional rescue. Even the visuals echo this transformation. On the album cover, she floats in a bathtub, her head barely above water, a clear nod to John Everett Miller's famous painting Ophelia from 1851. Interestingly, there's also another painting of Ophelia in Germany, painted around 1900 by Friedrich Hazel, and displayed at Museum Wiesbaden. Since The Fate of Ophelia came out, hundreds of Swifties have been flocking to the museum to see Hazel's painting in person. They recognized the resemblance to the opening scene of her music video, posing for photos and even attending special Ophelia-themed events. The museum staff have been thrilled to see so many young people engaging with art in this way, discovering both the painting and its story. Her lyrics also weave in her real-life love story, using sports metaphors and playful language when referring to her partner Travis Kelce. Keep it 100 on the land, the sea, the sky. Pledge allegiance to your hands, your team, your vibes. This mix of emotional vulnerability, personal references, and mythic storytelling is classic Taylor Swift. And she's been doing this for years. Her song Love Story also took inspiration from Shakespeare, turning the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet into a modern fairy tale, where Romeo doesn't die, he proposes in the end. With The Fate of Ophelia, she does something similar, but her storytelling goes even deeper. Taylor engages fans beyond the song itself. Her music often contains Easter eggs, subtle hints, and intertextual references that encourage listeners to analyze, discuss, and decode meaning. This turns listening into an active experience. Fans aren't just hearing a story, they're participating in it, theorizing about what it means, sharing interpretations, and staying emotionally interested long after the song ends. Across her albums, she consistently uses these tools: narrative storytelling, vivid imagery, personal and cultural references, and fan engagement techniques, all to draw listeners in. For me, this revealed something important. If I want people to care about conservation, facts and statistics alone won't be enough. I need to tell a story they can feel, one that uses imagery, metaphor, and emotion to build a connection. After analyzing how Taylor Swift weaves stories and symbolism into her music, I wanted to learn from her writing style, especially her use of references that carry deeper meaning. Taylor often draws on literature and art to build emotional depth, so I decided my song should also reference something beyond itself. While thinking about The Fate of Ophelia and how Taylor transformed the tragic ending into one of redemption, I started wondering if I could do something similar, but with nature. What if I reimagined The Fate of Ophelia as the fate of our world? What if the song explored whether we could still change our story, save nature and ourselves from tragedy? That thought led me to a series of paintings by the 19th century artist Thomas Cole called The Course of Empire. The series, painted between 1833 and 1836, depicts the rise and fall of a civilization built along a river valley. It begins with the savage state, moves through the Arcadian state and the consummation of empire, and ends in destruction and desolation. Cole's paintings are a cautionary tale, a visual warning about humanity's relentless drive for progress and the resulting destruction of nature. In the Arcadian state, humans still live in balance with the land, surrounded by harmony and abundance. But the series progresses, and civilization starts the exploitation of resources until everything collapses into ruin. It struck me how relevant that story feels today. Our world seems to be moving through these exact stages. But what if, unlike Cole's imagined civilization, we could change the ending? What if we could stop before desolation and return to Arcadia, to a life in balance with nature? That's when I discovered another one of Cole's works, The Dream of Arcadia. In this painting, he imagines a world of peace and simplicity, people living joyfully alongside unspoiled nature, children playing by a river, and sheep roaming the hillside. For Cole, this represented the ideal of harmony between humanity and the natural world, something he already saw disappearing in his own time. I knew immediately that the dream of Arcadia would be the perfect inspiration for my song. I wanted to write about that same longing, the dream of finding balance again, of reversing the course before it's too late. Just as Taylor uses Ophelia's tragedy to tell a story of salvation, I wanted to use Arcadia's decline to tell a story of renewal. With the story and message in place, I was finally ready to start writing. I wanted the song to capture the same emotional complexity that makes Taylor's music so powerful. But instead of love and heartbreak, my story would be about our relationship with the natural world. About loss, rediscovery, and the hope that we can still change the ending. From the start, I decided that my lyrics should be able to fit both the original melody of the Fate of Ophelia and the new composition I would later create. That dual structure felt meaningful. It allowed me to stay connected to Taylor's song, almost like a dialogue between her story and mine, while gradually shaping it into something of my own. I also wanted to keep a few fragments of her original lyrics, weaving them into my version, as echoes or references. Just as Taylor often uses recurring motifs or self-references across her albums, I wanted listeners familiar with the Fate of Ophelia to recognize subtle parallels. Lines that felt both familiar and new, but with a shifted meaning. In the Fate of Ophelia, Taylor sings about being saved from the fate of Ophelia. I wanted to take that idea and expand it into something collective. Not one person being saved from tragedy, but humanity finding a way to save the world from its fate. The song would mirror that transformation. From sorrow to renewal, from destruction to balance, from drowning to breathing again. Let's begin with the first verse. The theme here is nostalgia, looking back to a time when the world was in balance, when humans and nature lived together in harmony. This verse shows the beginning of our story, the very start of the journey, like the opening stage of Thomas Cole's Course of Empire, when everything is full of life, potential, and possibility. It's also a nod to Arcadia, the ideal of a world where humans and nature coexist peacefully. Here's the full verse. We heard the choirs, oh so long ago, their songs once dreamed in morning's glow. Beautiful voices, alive in harmony, now it's a fading symphony. In Taylor's original song, the first line, I heard you calling on the megaphone, is about someone reaching out to her, a moment of attention and connection. In my version, I wanted to take that same feeling, but apply it to the natural world. The choirs are the voices of nature, the animals, forests, rivers, and all living things that once were thriving. Their songs once dreamed in morning's glow, points to that beginning state, when humans lived with respect for the natural world, like the first stage in Cole's Course of Empire. And then the last two lines. Beautiful voices, alive in harmony, now it's a fading symphony. Show how this balance is slipping away. The biodiversity that once made the world vibrant is disappearing. This first verse is important because it sets the mood for the whole song. It looks back at what we had and reminds us of what we are losing. Now let's move on to the first pre-chorus. In Taylor's original song, she sings about how she might have drowned in the melancholy if no one had come for her. That someone's attention and love made all the difference and saved her from drowning. I wanted to draw a parallel for biodiversity. If we don't start paying attention to what's happening to the natural world, many species could vanish forever. So here is my pre-chorus. We stopped to listen to their sounds. The world grew busy and oh so loud. They vanished from reality beneath our eyes, and no one heard their pleading cries. The opening line, we stopped to listen to their sounds, recalls a moment when humans were aware of nature and acts as a connection to the first verse. But this awareness is fragile. As the next line shows, the world grew busy and oh so loud. Our modern lives, full of distractions, drown out those natural voices. The following lines, they vanished from reality beneath our eyes, and no one heard their pleading cries, reflects how species disappear quietly, often unnoticed. The imagery of pleading cries personifies nature as both victim and witness, showing humanity's failure to respond. Collectively, this pre-chorus captures the shift from awareness to neglect, illustrating how distraction and disconnection allow biodiversity loss to happen almost invisibly. The voices and pleading cries in the song represent the species whose calls once filled the natural world. The birds, mammals, and other creatures whose presence we could hear and notice. But there are also countless species like plants, fungi, insects, and other small or quiet creatures that can't call out or make themselves visible. Because of this, people naturally pay more attention to animals, especially larger and more familiar ones like mammals, which move and show behaviors that we can relate to, while the smaller or quieter species are often overlooked. This human bias has a big impact on conservation. Much of the funding, research, and public attention goes to larger animals, even though these silent or small species are just as crucial for life on Earth. For example, without plants, our natural ecosystems would collapse. Plants produce the oxygen, help regulate the climate, and support entire food webs, all the systems that make life possible. Just like Taylor might have drowned without someone saving her, biodiversity can vanish forever if we don't start paying attention. Not just the animals we see and hear, but also the silent hidden species that keep the planet alive. This pre-chorus is about how our awareness fades and why noticing every part of nature, even the quietest, is the first step in protecting it. The chorus is where the message becomes emotional. It's about loss, awakening, and hope. In Taylor's original chorus, she's saved from the fate of Ophelia, rescued from a kind of emotional drowning. In the Dream of Arcadia, I wanted to take that same feeling of being saved and apply it to our planet. The idea that if we open our eyes and act in time, maybe we can still save nature from its own fate. The chorus also connects to the next stage in Thomas Cole's Course of Empire, the consummation of empire. This stage follows the peaceful Arcadian state and represents the height of human achievement, wealth, and power, but also the beginning of imbalance. It's the moment when society becomes too confident, too greedy, and starts losing touch with nature. I wanted the chorus to reflect that turning point. The point where humanity begins to realize that its own success and expansion have come at a cost, and that unless we change, we risk destroying the harmony we once had. So here's the chorus. All that time, our greed drained Pan's ancient power. The nymphs lost their sacred bower. Now we can see it all. At this time, we cease to dig our own grave and try to set free our dream of Arcadia. In Taylor's version, she sings, "Now I can see it all, and you dug me out of my grave and saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia." I wanted to echo that same structure and imagery, but in a new context. Instead of one person being saved from heartbreak, it's about all of us realizing what's happening to the earth and deciding to stop to dig our own grave. It's the same feeling of awakening, but expanded from the personal to the collective. In my chorus, I used mythological imagery to show the connection between human behavior and the decline of nature. The line, "Our greed drained Pan's ancient power," refers to Pan, the Greek god of nature and wild places. In this context, Pan represents the energy and spirit of the natural world itself. When I say our greed drained his power, I'm talking about how overconsumption and exploitation have weakened ecosystems everywhere. The next line, "The nymphs lost their sacred power," goes even deeper into that loss. In Greek mythology, nymphs were the spirits of forests, rivers, and meadows, beings that could only live as long as their home stayed intact. So when the nymphs lose their sacred power, it's like saying that when ecosystems disappear, so do the species that depend on them. These mythological figures, Pan and the nymphs, act as symbols for species, habitats, and entire ecosystems. By using myth instead of plain ecological language, I wanted the message to feel more emotional and timeless. It's not just about science, it's about losing something sacred, something that once connected us deeply to the earth. Then the tone shifts. Now we can see it all. At this time, we cease to dig our own grave. This is the awakening, the realization that humanity can't keep exploiting nature without destroying itself. If we don't stop, we will literally dig our own grave, because humanity cannot survive without the systems that sustain life. Finally, try to set free our dream of Arcadia, brings the theme back to hope. Arcadia represents harmony between humans and nature, a place of balance and peace. Calling it a dream reminds us that this harmony still lives within our imagination. It's not gone, it's just forgotten, and it can be rediscovered if we truly choose to change. The post-chorus shifts the song's emotional energy from reflection to empowerment. It's the moment where mourning turns into movement, and where sorrow becomes action. In Taylor's original, she sings, "Keep it 100 on the land, the sea, the sky. Pledge allegiance to your hands, your team, your vibes. Don't care where the hell you've been, 'cause now you're mine. It's about to be the sleepless night you've been dreaming of, the fate of Ophelia." I reimagined this part as a collective awakening, a call to protect and rebuild. My version goes, "Guard the symphony on the land, the sea, the sky. Pledge allegiance to our lands, our dream, our life. No matter where you have been, join in and fight. Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of, the dream of Arcadia." Guard the symphony on the land, the sea, the sky captures the heart of this transformation. It expands Taylor's triad of land, sea, and sky into a symbol of the interconnectedness of all life. The word symphony echoes the song's earlier musical motives, portraying nature not just as a scenery, but as a living orchestra, where every organism and ecosystem plays a vital role. To guard the symphony is more than simple preservation. It's an active, shared responsibility to maintain harmony within the biosphere. Pledge allegiance to our lands, our dream, our life transforms Taylor's personal declaration of loyalty into something collective, a vow not to a person or nation, but to the planet itself. The triad of land, dream, life connects the physical world, our shared vision, and our very existence. It suggests that true belonging means recognizing Earth as our common home and protecting it as such. Then comes the call to action. Don't matter where you have been, join in and fight. This line opens the door to everyone, regardless of their past choices. It rejects guilt and division, instead inviting unity and courage. For me, this idea is really important when it comes to conservation. We need to include everyone who wants to make a difference. Too often, people are judged for not doing enough or for starting too late, but that mindset only pushes others away. What we really need is encouragement and openness. Every small action counts, and the more people feel welcome to join in, the stronger our collective effort becomes. Protecting nature isn't about perfection, it's about participation. Finally, the closing lines. Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of, the dream of Arcadia. While the first half of the song mourns what's been lost, this moment looks forward. Arcadia no longer represents a vanished paradise, but a vision for the future, a sustainable world we can still create if we act together. When writing this part, I wanted to keep some of Taylor's original rhythm and phrasing, especially the line "on the land, the sea, the sky." There's a viral TikTok dance that goes with this section of her song, and I thought it would be meaningful to adapt that choreography for my version. By doing so, I can reach a wider audience on social media, people who might not usually engage with environmental topics, and bring more attention to the importance of biodiversity conservation. Later, I'll talk more about how I created the TikTok and show you the result. Now let's move on to the second verse. It represents the stage of destruction and desolation in Thomas Cole's Course of Empire series, the point where civilization collapses under the weight of its own ambition. This is the moment when the dream of Arcadia has turned into its opposite. Cities crumble, balance is lost, and nature begins to reclaim what was taken. My lyrics for this verse are: the solemn painter of the empire's course, Cole Thomas sketched a fantasy. The rise was a false hope, they soon lost their force, destruction claimed their legacy. Here, Cole becomes both an artist and a prophet. His fantasy, the story of an empire's rise and fall, mirrors humanity's ongoing relationship with nature. What he painted in the 1830s has become a warning for our time. The rise was a false hope, they soon lost their force, speaks to the illusion of endless progress. They believe that technological and economic growth can continue forever without any cost. In The Consummation of Empire, Cole shows the empire at its height, rich, powerful, and seemingly invincible. But hidden in that triumph is the seed of collapse. The same ambition that drove the empire's success becomes the force that destroys it. Finally, destruction claimed their legacy, captures the aftermath, the ruins, the silence, and the slow return of the natural world. This verse connects back to the song's earlier sense of mourning, the fading symphony of life. But it also shows what happens when we ignore that fading sound for too long. The harmony of Arcadia gives way to decay, and the dream becomes a warning. This connects closely to Taylor's original second verse, where Ophelia begins to lose her mind. In her song, it's a personal breakdown, a person falling apart from within. In my version, that collapse happens on a much bigger scale. Instead of one woman losing herself, it's the world that's falling apart, a planet overwhelmed by its own choices. Just like Ophelia drowns in her sorrow, humanity risks drowning in the chaos it has created. Together with the first verse and chorus, this part completes the moral arc of the Course of Empire. It reminds us that humanity still follows the same cycle, but also that recognizing it might give us the chance to break it, to rediscover Arcadia before desolation becomes our own ending. The second pre-chorus represents the moment of awakening, the point where denial starts to fade and awareness begins to grow. It's that uncomfortable but necessary step when we finally see what's been happening all along. My lyrics are, and now I am begging you to see the cost of our complacency. It winds around you like the truth you can't deny, pulling you into the light. In this part, the song shifts from despair to realization. And now I'm begging you to see the cost of our complacency is a plea not just from me, but from the planet itself. It's a call to recognize that sometimes the greatest damage doesn't come from cruel intentions, but from doing nothing at all. Our comfort and distraction have a price, and that price is often paid quietly. The next line, it winds around you like the truth you can't deny, turns awareness into something we can no longer ignore. The truth isn't distant anymore. It's right here, wrapping around us, through the visible consequences of our collective actions. We see it in the loss of pollinators that threatens our food supply, in degraded soils that can no longer support healthy crops, and in wetlands that have vanished, taking with them the fresh water and fish that many communities depend on. As biodiversity declines, ecosystems lose their ability to function and recover. Every species, no matter how small, plays a role in keeping these systems balanced and resilient. When too many pieces are lost, ecosystems start to fail, and their services to humans weaken as well. We are fundamentally dependent on these natural systems for clean water, food, and even protection against extreme weather. The loss of biodiversity doesn't just harm wildlife, it also threatens human health and livelihoods. In this way, the truth you can't deny becomes painfully clear. The destruction of biodiversity is also the destruction of our own life support system. The more we lose, the more vulnerable we become, ecologically, economically, and socially. Once we recognize this connection, it's impossible to look away. Finally, pulling you into the light represents that moment when denial breaks. The light is both clarity and responsibility. It's the painful but freeing act of finally looking at the damage and realizing that we still have the power to change it. It's not an easy pull. It's uncomfortable, even painful. But it's also hopeful, because it means we're beginning to care again. In Taylor's version, this is the moment where she's rescued, where she's pulled out of darkness by someone who sees and cares about her. In my version, that same motion happens, but on a global scale. Instead of one person being saved, it's humanity being pulled towards awareness. Now let's move on to the bridge. I decided on a theme of responsibility and awakening for this part of the song. The moment when humanity fully recognizes both its role in the destruction of nature and its power to restore balance. Here are the lyrics of my bridge. The balance breaks beneath the sea, and only we possess the key. No longer blind, we make a plea, all because we choose to see. It's our responsibility, and only we possess the key, to change our course to let it be, and live again in harmony. In Taylor Swift's original bridge, she sings, "'Tis locked inside my memory, and only you possess the key. No longer drowning and deceived, all because you came for me." In her song, the key represents the person who rescues her from emotional drowning, a personal moment of being saved. In my version, I adapted this imagery to the planet. And only we possess the key signals that humans collectively hold the power to prevent ecological collapse and restore the natural world. Just as Taylor needed help to survive, Earth needs us to take action before it's too late. The balance breaks beneath the sea, highlights the hidden depths of ecological crisis. The oceans, which support life on Earth, are already destabilized by human activity. And this line reminds us that the consequences of our actions often affect places we don't immediately see. The lines, "No longer blind, we make a plea, all because we choose to see," show the moment of awakening. Choosing to see means recognizing the impacts of our inaction. Species lost, habitats damaged, and the vital ecological services that are disappearing. Awareness becomes the first step towards restoration. Seeing is caring, and caring leads to action. The next section, "It's our responsibility, and only we possess the key, to change our course to let it be, and live again in harmony," emphasizes both accountability and hope. Because humans are the main cause of biodiversity loss, it's also within our power to turn things around. To change our course connects directly to the course of empire. Just as Cole's paintings illustrate the rise, peak, and fall of civilizations, humanity now has the opportunity to alter its trajectory before we reach complete collapse. To let it be carries the idea of stepping back and allowing nature the space and time to heal on its own. Finally, "Live again in harmony" returns to the dream of Arcadia, envisioning a world where humans and nature coexist in balance. This bridge is motivating because it reminds us that we can make a difference. Humanity may have caused much of this ecological damage, but that also means we hold the solutions. The key becomes a symbol of collective agency, a reminder that we can choose restoration, not just destruction, and that our actions truly matter. Finally, let's move to the outro. The theme of the outro is hope and action, turning reflection into a promise. The lyrics go, "We'll save the world from the fate of Arcadia." In Taylor's original, she sings, "You saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia." Her line is about being personally saved, about love and rescue. In my version, it becomes about saving something bigger, the planet itself. The Fate of Arcadia represents what happens when harmony with nature is lost through greed, neglect, and disconnection. By vowing to save the world from the fate of Arcadia, the lyric recognizes that we've made mistakes, but also that it's not too late to change. This line brings the whole message of the song together: awareness, responsibility, and hope. Humans are the ones who disrupted the balance, but we're also the ones who can restore it. Arcadia, once a dream of balance between people and nature, becomes a goal for the future, a vision of the world we can rebuild if we choose to act. The outro closes the song on a hopeful note. What began as a song of loss ends as a promise. The dream of Arcadia doesn't have to fade. It can live on, not as a memory, but as something we work toward together. After writing the lyrics, the next step was to create a melody and actually produce the song. This was completely new territory for me. I had never written or produced a song before, so I ran into a lot of challenges right away. Coming up with a new melody was my first hurdle. I had the melody of the Fate of Ophelia stuck in my head after listening to it so many times. And at first it was really hard to imagine something entirely different. I had to approach it piece by piece, trying out notes until something original started to emerge. It took a few days, lots of trial and error, and more than a little frustration. Singing was another challenge. I'm not a trained vocalist, and as much as I wanted to sing in my song, I just wasn't able to get it to sound right. But it was really important to me that the song would be listenable. That's why I decided to use AI-generated vocals for the main track. After doing a lot of research, I found a tool that could produce singing that matched the melody I had created. Once I had the main vocals, I still needed to build the rest of the track: the beat, instruments, and backing vocals. The only software I was somewhat familiar with was DaVinci Resolve, which I use for video editing. I watched countless YouTube tutorials to figure out how to make it work for music production. I learned how to download royalty-free audio samples, import them, and loop them to create a foundation for the song. I added drums as well as a piano and a bass track in order to give the song structure and rhythm. For the backing vocals, I actually decided to use my own voice, recorded on my cell phone. Harmonizing was harder than I expected. I had to record the same sections over and over again until they sounded okay. But after many attempts, I managed to get most of them to work. Layering these harmonies made the song feel more complete. Overall, creating this song was a huge learning experience, full of trial, error, and persistence. It's definitely not perfect, but for my first song, I'm really proud of how it turned out. Despite all of these challenges, hearing my lyrics come to life in a finished track for the first time was incredibly rewarding. I can't wait to hear what you think once you listen to it and see the music video. I'll show you the final result at the end of this video, so stay tuned. Once the song was finished, the next step was bringing it to life visually, creating the music video. It was another completely new challenge for me. I've never made a music video before, and as a student, my budget was basically zero. I don't have the same skills or resources as a big production team, but I still wanted to create something meaningful and visually engaging. Something that would connect the themes of my song with strong emotional imagery. The first step was writing a script for the video. Taylor Swift's The Fate of Ophelia music video is known for being full of Easter eggs. She's even said in an interview that there are around 100 of them. My video definitely doesn't have that many, but I still wanted to include a few small references for you to find. Each of the 2 verses in my video hints at a different song about conservation or environmentalism. I'm not going to tell you which ones. I'll let you figure it out. After you've watched the video, let me know in the comments which songs you think I'm referencing. I'm really curious to see what you pick up on. For the choruses, I wanted the visuals to connect to Thomas Cole's The Course of Empire, starting with the Arcadian state and moving through the later stages. This felt like the perfect way to mirror the themes of my song: the rise, the fall, and possible renewal of humanity's relationship with nature. There are also a few visual parallels to the Fate of Ophelia music video, but they serve a completely different purpose in my version. In her video, there's a scene where she becomes part of a painting, and at one point an orange bird lands on her. I wanted to use similar imagery, but in a new context. In my video, the story follows a woman who enters a museum exhibit about the course of empire and humanity's responsibility toward nature. As she walks through the gallery, she steps into the paintings and becomes part of them. At one point, an orange bird lands on her, not as a symbol of personal transformation, but as a moment of reconnection between humans and the natural world. One scene that really stood out to me in Taylor's video was during the bridge, when she's caught in ropes and pulled up toward a ship. When I saw that, I immediately thought, what if instead of a person being pulled up, it was a shark tangled in ropes, being pulled out of the ocean? That single image of a trapped shark caught by humans felt like a powerful way to show the environmental damage caused by overfishing and in general the exploitation of natural resources. So the next step was actually producing the music video. Pretty quickly I realized that filming it with real people would be way too complicated, with all the ideas I had and the script I wanted to follow. So I decided to take a completely different approach. I made everything out of paper cutouts and moved them around kind of like in a puppet theater. I built a tiny movie set on our table using a pegboard that could stand upright. For the background, I grabbed one of my husband's white dress shirts and pulled it over the pegboard to make a plain backdrop. It was very DIY, but it did the job. Then I ran into a little problem. Whenever I tried to move the props, my hands ended up in the shot. Luckily, our dining table is one of those expandable ones where you can take out the middle piece. So I removed it, which left a hole in the middle of the table, and I covered that with a piece of cardboard. I cut a few slits into it so I could stick in the props and move them around from below the table, using cardboard sticks I had taped to them. It looked a bit ridiculous, but it actually worked really well. I decided to keep most of the props white with some gray shading, and only color a few of the important ones to make them stand out more. I filmed everything from the head of the table, pointing the camera straight at the set. The hardest part was moving things around without accidentally bumping the cardboard and shaking the whole setup. I had to reshoot quite a few times, but eventually I got it right. It's definitely not perfect, but it works. And I think it really captures the idea I had in mind. After all that work, I really can't wait for you to finally see what it turned into, and also to hear the song for the first time. So here it is.
We heard the choirs oh so long ago. The songs once dreamed in morning glow. Beautiful voices alive in harmony. Now it's a fading symphony. We stopped to listen to their sounds. The world grew busy and oh so loud. They vanished from reality beneath our eyes, and no one heard their pleading cry. All that time I breathed, drained Pan's ancient power. The nymphs lost their sacred power. Now we can see it all. At this time we cease to dig our own grave and try to set free our dream of Arcadia. God, the symphony on the land, let's leave the sky. Pledge allegiance to our lands, our dream, our life. No matter where you have been, join in and fight. Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of, the dream of Arcadia. Arcadia. The solemn painter of the empire's course called Thomas sketched a fantasy. The rise was a false hope. They soon lost their force. Destruction claimed their legacy. And now I am begging you to see the cost of our complacency. It winds around you like the truth you can't deny, pulling you into the light. Time of greed drink Pan's ancient power. The nymphs lost their sacred power. Now we can see it all. At this time we cease to dig our own grave and try to set free our dream of Arcadia. For the symphony on the land, the sea, the sky, pledge allegiance to our lands, our dream of life. No matter where you have been, join in and fight. Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of, the dream of Arcadia. The balance breaks beneath the sea, and only we possess the key. No longer blind, we make a plea, all because we choose to see. It's our responsibility, and only we possess the key to change our course, to let it be and live again in harmony. Oh, that's how greed drink Pan's ancient power. The nymphs lost their sacred power. Now we can see it all. At this time we cease to dig our own grave and try to set free our dream of Arcadia. Guard the symphony on the land, the sea, the sky, pledge allegiance to our lands, our dream of life. No matter where you have been, join in and fight. Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of, the dream of Arcadia. We'll save the world from the fate of Arcadia.
I hope you enjoyed watching the music video and hearing the Dream of Arcadia for the first time. It really means a lot to me that you've made it this far in this video. Thank you so much for sticking with me through the whole process. There's just one more thing I want to talk about before wrapping up. After finishing the music video, I wanted to do one more thing to share the project in a fun way. So I decided to make a short TikTok dance to the post-chorus part of the song. I'll be honest, I'm definitely not a dancer, and it took some courage for me to actually upload a video of myself dancing. I didn't even have TikTok before this project. I downloaded it just for this reason. When Taylor's song The Fate of Ophelia came out about a month ago, the dance from her music video was recreated by tons of TikTokers and started trending really fast. I wanted to take part in that trend in my own way. For my version, I changed some of the moves so they would fit my lyrics better. But I kept a few key parts from her dance, just enough for people to recognize where the idea came from and hopefully draw some attention to my video as well. At the end of my TikTok, right after the line, "Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of," the dream of Arcadia, I pick up a plastic recycling bag and collect a littered PET bottle before walking out of the frame. It's a bit cheesy and cliche, but I think it gets the message across. Maybe even inspires people to do the same when they're out in nature or to make small changes in their daily lives. And now, let me show you my TikTok.
Got the symphony on the land, the sea, the sky, pledge allegiance to our lands, our dream, our life. No matter where you have been, join in and fight. Now it's time to build the world we've been dreaming of, the dream of Arcadia. The dream of Arcadia.
And that brings us to the end of this project. Honestly, I learned so much throughout this whole process. From writing and producing the song, to filming and editing the video, and even making my first TikTok. It was a lot of work, but also a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of how it all came together. This project pushed me out of my comfort zone, but in the best way possible. I've discovered how rewarding it can be to turn an idea into something real, even with limited tools and experience. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this little journey with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. And who knows, maybe this won't be the last time I do something like this. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. And please tell me, what song should I rewrite next?